Welcome to the Sober Living Stories podcast. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of sobriety. We shine a spotlight on individuals who have faced the challenges of alcoholism and addiction and are today living out their best lives sober. Each guest has experienced incredible transformation and are here to share their story with you. I'm Jessica Stepanovic, your host. Join me each week as guests from all walks of life share their stories to inspire and provide hope to those who need it most. Welcome to the Sober Living Stories podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by Chris. Born in the Virgin Islands and raised in South Florida, he has 12 years of continuous sobriety. A true example of living well. When I first spoke to Chris, he was on a vacation in Australia. He believes in embracing adventure, positive change, and treating oneself to the good things in life. Join us as Chris shares his positivity and the vibrant energy that comes with living out your best life sober. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us.
Jessica, thank you so much for reaching out and making this happen. This is another exciting part of my adventure.
Great. Lucas, if you'd like to just start right from the beginning, I don't know if you want to go as far back as when you were growing up, and just take us to the point in your life where you began to feel that drugs and alcohol were having a negative effect, and just how you walked through that and how you're living today.
All right. Well, my story growing up, I grew up in a very good household. I had a loving mother. One of the funniest things about my growing up, especially drugs and alcohol, is my father retired as one of the heads of the DEA in the Southeast United States. So I grew up knowing drugs are bad. Like, I am adopted. So, my parents that I have, they are my parents, but, I'm adopted, but they're still that. My mom sent me to the best, private schools, etc. Let me experience as much of life as she could. In my teenage years, around 14, 15, I started smoking marijuana. And then as I got older and we're hanging out, then started drinking beer about the same time, somewhere between 14, 16 years old. I, never really got in trouble at the age. I was too young to really do anything. I think I more or less did it because it was the thing to do. That's what we were all doing, especially with the older brothers and so forth. I think it really got harder, my drinking. I got sent to a military boarding school halfway through 9th grade, and it was in Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And in Alabama, it's all about Jack Daniels, Wild Turkey, and Budweiser.
Right.
So, obviously military school, we were very structured at school, but then when we got the weekends off, it was full throttle. If you go home, with a friend for the weekend. Graduated high school, came home, and everything's good. I'm not getting in any trouble. Nothing's wrong. Just living it up, just doing what all of us teenagers did. And I think around 22 is when my first real getting out of control, not controlling my drinking. And, the reason I state that as on September 6th, 2003, I was in a four-wheeler accident. And it's kind of crazy to state that the only reason I am still here and not a vegetable is because of how intoxicated I was. And it's not because, they say when you're intoxicated, you more survive because you're a free body. No, it's because I hit my head and I had so much blood in my system, or alcohol in my blood, it wouldn't clot.
Wow.
So the alcohol saved my life. I'd be a vegetable now.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I quit drinking for about 18 months after that. I scared myself, this is something's wrong. And I made it. I was killing it. We're doing great. I'm living a better life. I'm wanting nobody close to me to ever experience what I did. Well, then October of 2005, about 2 years later, roughly, I I won a big fishing tournament,
Okay.
and we won like over $1 million in the tournament. The boat did,
Oh,
and
wow.
that whole sobriety thing and living a better life went out the window. It was party time.
Mhm.
Um, you know, that's where I went back full throttle again. And I'm still working on that. Let me also step back. Another thing that was kind of also like with my mom, and my mom's a physician, is that always growing up too. My mom never always told me. My mom doesn't drink at all. She always said, "Chris, be careful. You may be an alcoholic. Just be careful." And she never called me one, but she said, "Just be careful." Well, anyway, so we won that money in that tournament. I'm still living a great life traveling. I mean, and then that 2006 around March, I remember I got arrested in Dominican Republic. I totaled a car. Well, I had a lot of ups and downs in that part. I got a DUI in 2007. I got out of it, and what not happened, but I never accepted that there was something wrong. I just got
Right.
that was a bad day. I got to think. In 2009, I was dating a friend, or I was dating a girl, Christina, and she's a very important person to me. The reason behind it is we partied hard together. Well, on
Okay.
February 21st, 2011, she checked herself because I'm not saying we're different, but she felt she had a larger addiction to substances. And we were still dating, and she separated herself, did that, but I always told her I'd be there for her. And then one of the craziest things that really triggered in my head was that I promised her if she ever called me from her treatment center, I would never answer the phone if I'd been drinking. And she even called me out on it one time. Like, it doesn't seem like we talk, which means
Right.
I'm intoxicated. Well, that's kind of where my positive change in story starts. Um, as I was supporting her, she came out of her treatment center, and I would take her to meetings. I'm sitting there in the meetings with her, supporting her because I want her to do great. But things are
Right.
triggering me. Like
You
somebody
mean
was,
you're hearing
yeah,
things in the
I'm
meeting
hearing
that you're
things, and I'm
resonating.
like, oh, that sounds familiar. Oh, I
Right. Right.
remember that. But I wouldn't say anything. It would trigger me. So on I think the original day, May 27th or 28th, I decided to go on my own, unbeknownst to anybody, um, to a meeting, the Broward County Men's Group. It was at 7 a.m. I went on my own. I sat in the back, the whole thing. I listened, and then I went back again the next day and I listened. And then on May 31st, 3 days later, I finally got up and said, "All right, I'm here. Let's do this."
Wow.
Um, and then what was crazy is that I even still was in dating. Christine and I were still in a relationship, and still didn't say a word, anything, until the day I hit 30 days. And then I invited a few friends of mine, "Hey guys, you got to come check this out." And then they saw me
Hmm.
pick up my 30 days.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Because
Hmm.
I was doing, it was very important for me to do it for myself, not for somebody else. Like I went every day for 30 days. I went to the same meeting at 7 a.m. for 30 days because I couldn't say, "Oh, I'm too tired in the afternoon to go to a meeting." I couldn't give myself a reason. I did it before my day started, and then the rest of the day was free. So that's where just really cool things started happening. Like, and that's where I really learned how much of the world is all in the same or how many people around the world are still in the same program. Um,
Right.
when I was coming up to my 60 days, the boss was like, "Hey Chris, we're leaving for 4 months to the Bahamas." So, and I knew we were doing that before. It wasn't that short of notice. And I was freaked out. I'm like, I'm about to go to the Bahamas for 4 months. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, this is about to be
Right.
weird. Like, and
Hmm.
I remember I
And
was in Hard Rock.
that's for your job. And what was your job at that
and
point?
and I was a sport fish captain. Same thing I do now. I sport
Okay.
fish big game all over the world, and so I'm nervous. I'm about to leave for four
Right.
months, and
Mm.
like there's no moral, there's no support. Like there obviously there's meetings all over the world, and it is very highly stated. So I'm sitting there. I remember on my computer, and I'm finding it. I found a meeting in Nassau, And then but then my coolest meeting I found was in Harbor Island, Bahamas, on the Lutheran. I found it, and we walk up, and I'm standing there, and there's just two Bahamians standing there, and I look, and then I'm like, I'm like, I don't know if because it was outside on like this dock. I don't know if I'm in the right place, and I'm too nervous to ask questions, so I'm just kind of
Right.
sitting there looking around. And then they go, "You here for the meeting?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They go, oh, "Okay, well, there's looks like there's only be three of us." And I was like, "Oh,"
Okay.
and then
Love it.
that right there, bam, I'm freaked out, but then I calm down because now I'm surrounded. Like it's only
Right.
two, and then I pick up my 60 days there, and they didn't have chips in the Bahamas. They just painted seashells of different colors, and I
Come
still have this.
on.
Yeah,
That's so good.
yeah. So I still have my red seashell still to this day.
Wow.
Same guy, Kevin, that gave me my 60 days. I ran into him about a year ago, same island. Kevin's like, "Man, how you doing?" I'm like, "I got 12 years," or like, "I got 11 years." He's
Wow.
like, "Oh, so he saw it was
That's
awesome." But so I made it through that, and I pushed hard. I come back from that trip, and I remember being like, "All right, the one thing I haven't done yet is a sponsor, steps, anything." Everything was a very you know, fast moving process for me. So I
right.
come back, and I'm like, all right, I got to get a sponsor. I'm at the 7 a.m. men's meeting, and you're looking around like, all right, who can I ask? Who can I ask? Well, I honestly picked my sponsor because of the pair of sandals he had on. He had on rainbow sandals, which means that
Rainbow.
that means that he likes, well, to me, he likes the water. He likes this, and we'll probably click somewhere. So I walked up to him, and his name is Sheridan. And I said, "Hey, sir, like, will you be my sponsor?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then that's where now my new opening journey began. And what I mean opening, about like learning what was here that was causing a lot of things.
Right. Okay.
Uh, so I started my venture with him, started my steps and went through them all. And, it was like, and he was very open, like with the guidance. I can't remember the exact step, but the one where, after you make your list and you admit to another person of your wrongdoings, he says, you don't have to tell me a single thing. Because if you don't feel comfortable telling me, you can go to a therapist and tell them.
Right.
It doesn't say you tell your sponsor, it says you have to tell somebody. And right there, that was another positive thing, because he was saying to me, if you want, I will help you do everything. If you want to share it with me, you can. But if you'd feel more comfortable sharing it with somebody else, say law abiding can't share anything you say, that's fine with me too.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided there, like, this is, trust, and I let loose. I just dumped it all out on him. He looked at me and he goes, "Wow, we grew up about the same life." It was just like really cool.
Same thing.
Um,
Yeah.
so I pushed through my steps, and I just got talking to previously, I do my steps every year, because every year I've
Okay.
become more comfortable with myself to admit things that even 12 years ago I wasn't going to admit. I'll admit now, because I'm happy. There's nothing that scares me anymore. I'm not gonna say I don't have fear, but there's not, what happened in the past is there. I can't change it. It happened. I can only try to move forward from it. I tell everybody, if you ever have something, call me. If you call me and I can talk, I will talk with you for hours. I'll pick you up. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, I like what you said in the beginning. Just there's 2 points I just wanted to pull out because they're really important. Is one, when you first got started and you just went by yourself and you didn't tell anyone, it's your own internal decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, or you did it privately, so and you were committed to it. And then when you saw that you had some, consistency, then you brought other people in and shared it with them. And that's really great. That just shows you were driven and you made that internal decision yourself. And then secondly, I love that you said you picked your 30 days up with a painted shell in the Bahamas, because there are 12-step recovery meetings and support all over the world for this. They're everywhere. And that's important
Everywhere.
for people to know, because it is a little nerve-wracking. Like in the beginning, like if you're heading out to do your research and to be like, hey, and there's always people you find, and it's always something really cool. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no. So no problem. Like, like that's an important part, I think, of my part of giving back is to telling people.
Mhm.
Like you said, Indonesia. I've done Costa Rica. I've like the same thing. On almost every country I've ever traveled to, other than maybe you know little islands where there are none. Like there are some places in the world where there are none. Like especially in French Polynesia when I was down there, because like they have no understanding of it. I started enjoying my life. I'm living my life. I'm doing what I want to do. And one of the biggest things, and I've talked to you before about it, is like Mary, coming up on my 2 years, my sponsor is like saying, so like, man, you're coming up on two. I got through the year, and that was a good one. But coming up on 2 years, now I'm doubling it. Wow, man! Like I not only won, but now I just did two.
Right.
And he's like, "What are you gonna do do for yourself?" And he's the one that opened that up to me. He's like, I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you should do something big for yourself." And I was like, "Why?" And he says, "You need to give yourself a reason, treat yourself a reason to be happy of what you're doing." So, like for example, my 2 year gift to myself, I bought myself a new little flats boat. And
Nice.
then I remember I'm like, man, like, working on boats. I was like, I got to name it something. And a friend of mine goes, "Why don't you name it the Wagon?" Name my first boat the Wagon. So if they go, "Where's Chris at?" He's on the Wagon. And I made T-shirts and stickers and everything about because, and then it just like I'm living what I want. I'm living my life. I'm not hiding it. Like if you
Right.
and actually it said established, and it said 2011. And the people that knew what that meant, the Wagon, like it was established in my sobriety date is May 31st, 2011. So the Wagon was
I love
established.
it.
So
Mhm.
I lived it, but unless you knew me, you didn't know what that meant.
Right. Right.
And so the funny part about the T-shirts is, and here this is awesome. One of the first of many amazing. A good friend of mine, Brian, he lives in a townhouse neighborhood, and the whole neighborhood's getting painted. My
Yep.
sponsor owned a painting company, so they're sitting there and they're going to the doors and telling the people, "Hey, we're going to do your house this day." They say, "Well," Brian walks to the door and he happened to have a Wagon shirt on. And my sponsor standing in front of him looks at him and goes, "Oh, you know Chris, huh?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Your shirt." What were the odds? And the crazy thing is that Brian is one of my mentors. He's helped me in my career. He's a few years older than me as a captain, but he's helped me out. What are the odds that one of my biggest supporters about me giving up drinking met the man who's helping me, and supportive to me
Right.
without me connecting them? It's just kind of funny. And why?
Sure.
Because I bought a boat that I treated myself and made a T-shirt, and now it was just a funny coincidence to me. So that was like the start of just me really being happy, and then I'll get to more like really cool stories. Like I forget, I think it was 2016. Again, like learning how you're not by yourself. I was in the Dominican Republic, and at night, all the boys, all the sport, they all go out partying. But there was myself and two other captains that never went anywhere. And these captains are a few older guys. And Chris, how come you never go out with them? I'm like, I gave up. I gave it all up. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, I gave up all the drinking and partying. And then the one captain, he goes, "You a friend of Bill's?" I said,
Come
"Yeah." And he
on.
goes, "So are we." So right then and there, I went from, even at that point, I had, let's call 5 years ish, somewhere 4 to
Right.
5 years. I now, every night, you know, we would meet up, maybe go grab dinner together.
I
And
was
that
just
right
going to
there,
ask you how you handled your profession being so sober, alcohol free. I was just going to ask you that, and here you go, you
well,
know?
because here we like that then and there, like, you know, now there's two other people. We'd go to
Right.
dinner, we're talking. Talking is a meeting, like,
Sure.
so, and I still talk. One of the guys lives in Palm Beach where I live now, and the other guy's in the Carolinas. And, we
Hmm.
still talk
Yeah,
periodically.
it's like instant friends completely.
Yeah. It just everything just started getting better. And it just in a sense of like, again, I'm not alone. one of the biggest things that I love to share, like I was telling you, is that, I was talking about the flat split and other things. Anybody that is getting sober, they need to treat themselves. Every year, if you tell yourself how, like when you first spoke to me, I was in Australia. Every year, I believe anybody in sobriety or recovery should say, and I really want to go on this cruise, or I really want to go here. Make it a point. I guarantee, as long as you're enjoying your sobriety and giving yourself that, like doing what you want to do, one, you're going to save more money than you ever spent in the past.
Right. That's the thing, you would never think to not buy alcohol or drugs, regardless of the cost. But then in sobriety, you might be like, well, I don't know if I should do that. But you're saying you absolutely should.
You should, because if it
makes sense.
If you like for example, I like tell people, I used to spend, let's call it for easy number, $1,000 a week in alcohol.
Right.
So here I am 5 years sober. Why don't I go buy that $80 steak I want for dinner?
I love this. I've got 18. I haven't ever done that. I'm going to start doing it this time.
Because there, I spent $80 this week on a steak. That means I still have $920 left. It's like, like
that's good math.
That's one of the biggest things, that enjoy yourself, like give yourself a reason to do what you're doing. Don't do it for give yourself a reason. If you're a woman and there's a purse you wanted, buy it. If there's a trip, if you want to go to this certain spa, do it. If you're a man and there's a hunt you want to do it. Maybe you can't do the same hunt every year, but give yourself a point to where at this point I want, and it's
I love that, and I'm going to share that with all the people that I know to do that, because it's so true, of course, and it just I never even thought to, but of course, makes so much sense.
It's
exciting. It's a big deal.
The biggest, and I'll say the reason why, and also I think it takes time to accept that part. And the reason why is also your first few years, you're kind of hesitant. I believe the reason behind that is depending on where you were when you were out.
Yes,
you spent so much money. So now that you're saving money, you're trying to like grip it. I'm not going to let go of this. I got it. But eventually you have to say, I got it. All these people are doing cool things, but I still have my money. Yeah, but now we need to transition it.
Well, too, and it might take some time to think, do I deserve this? Because, we don't come in feeling great about ourselves, right? So it might take it may take some time to say, to get around enough people to say, yeah, like your friend said to you, yeah, you definitely do deserve this, and then you start to believe that, and then you start treating yourself right. Yeah, I think that's an important part. Sure.
Without a doubt. That's my biggest part that I tell anybody in anything when I meet them. It's just, all right, you got through, all right, you were in the mud, you got out of the mud, it's taking a little bit to clean yourself up. Now you're shining. Now go show the world who you are. Now go show yourself what you've missed. Did I ever believe anywhere in my life that I'd ever do a cruise from Hawaii to Sydney? No, never. And then here I am. I'm on a ship. And then I also believe I was supposed to be on that ship because the cruise was like 21 days. And I went to like 4 of the meetings that were on the ship. There was a kid that was on the cruise. I don't know how old he was. It's called in his 30s. And he was at the meeting. You can tell he's fresh into it. I think he got like his first like 40 or 50 days while he was on the ship. And out of all the rooms on this big ship, he was 1 room across and 1 over from me. So I saw him a lot. And every day I looked at him, like when I see him, and I wouldn't call him out. I'm like, how you doing, bro? And he's like, good. I'm like, you good? Staying strong? He goes, yeah. And I was like, all right, man, listen, keep your head up, do this, But I'd never if there was people around, I wouldn't say anything. I'd kind of like, just like, hey, acknowledge, like, like thumbs up kind of thing. Then I called him one time and said, hey, bro, I know the meeting that that they're having. You and I are definitely the younger people in there. If you want to talk to somebody in event, dude, let me know, man. Like, I'll meet up with you. And it was kind of crazy because I don't know how many days it was. He said, hey, like, tonight, you think I want to talk about something? How you do? Yeah, I was like, yeah, no worries. So met up at like 11 o'clock on a deck, like
Oh,
away from
wow.
everybody. And I said, what's up? And he was asking me, like, how do you do this? How do you handle this? And I said, this is what I did. And then
Mhm.
I remember by the end of the trip, we're like all now departing to get off the ship. And he like walked up to me and like with a kind of a smile on his face, like fist bumped me. And he's like, hey man, I appreciate it. And then we kind of went on our ways. I
That's a
guess
big
my
deal.
room was picked and yeah, like it just worked out. It was what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. By no mistake. Do you have a pretty big group of guys that all do the same thing in your profession or that are alcohol free, or is it relatively still?
I can name easy in my profession as a captain 10 to 12 people easily I can name. But the more importantly, out of all of it, I have more of my friends that support me huge, hugely. When I hit my 10 years, like talking about giving back, I took like 8 of my closest guy friends that really appreciate that I appreciate because they supported me out to an amazing dinner. That was me. That was a gift. That was a gift to myself. That was me treating the people who've always treated me, looked out for my
That,
well being.
that's great. Looked out for your well being. I like that. Mhm. That's great.
You know,
How have the relationships in your family, your immediate family, changed since you've become alcohol free? Has there been any change there?
so my with my mom, it's gotten a lot better. It was never bad, but what it is it got my mom to stop like worrying like where I was. A DUI, I fell off to a four wheeler. It just got her to
Right.
finally be like, all right, I don't care now where in the world you are because I know you're doing the right thing. It basically got her, I think, more peace of mind, like calm. You
Yeah,
know, like
sure. That's a
like I had my mom give me my 3 year medallion when I did it.
mhm. That's
Like
great.
because it was important to me. Like because like, all right, mom, I'm still doing this. I love the fact that growing up, another friend of mine's dad was a bail bondsman, which was not a good thing for an alcoholic because I tell people that because I knew no matter what, I'd get out of jail. You
Right.
know, and now I don't worry about it. The same buddy of mine that whose parents are bail bondsmen, he's been sober now for probably like 5 or 6 years.
Oh, wow.
So like both
Really?
of us, like yeah. So and their his parents sold their business. I said, well, we really can't get in trouble anymore. And it's kind of an inside joke, but
In your future, what do you see happening with you? Um, like what do you have left that you where you want to go or what you want to do?
I have a lot of places that I have left that I want to go. Even though I've been to a
Hmm.
lot of places, a lot of times we were occupied with working. So, I only got to see bits of it, whatever was close. I've been in a relationship with somebody for 3 years now, which is amazing. And I got huge support, from that. She's also she's helping me to extend what I do.
Okay.
Like I've done 2 cruises in the past 2 years. Being a boat captain, traveling for a living on a boat is not where I want to be.
You're
But
on a boat right now, aren't you?
and I'm sitting on the boat that I work on right now, out of the water, getting service done on it. It's getting me out of my comfort zone. Like I did the Galapagos last year. And it's just getting me away from like with that I had no control over what we were doing on that ship or on so it got me to just sit back and just go with it. I did this one. The only thing I've learned on a cruise is you got to control your eating because I've been to Australia before, but I was on a whole different part of the continent, and I fished New Zealand, but we are only out of Auckland. Like where this time we did more play. And it's getting me to go back and really enjoy where I'm at.
Uh-huh.
Where now I'm fully enjoying my life. I'm doing everything I can. Um, Italy has got to be on my list because that's my girlfriend's favorite place. And I said, all right, we got to do it. My goal now is to try to do one big trip a year. I want to treat myself to one trip a year while I'm still able to move and walk and run and climb.
A lot of the listeners have, if they have a little bit of earlier sobriety than you currently have, is there anything like one line that somebody gave to you that stuck in your head that you can share with them?
one of my favorite lines is "It's all good, no matter what.
Mm,
It's all good." And then another thing that I live by, especially in sobriety, that I think gets misunderstood on what you should do. Like a lot of people in early sobriety, or a lot of people when they do it, they're told to call their sponsor if they have an issue. Well,
right.
my sponsor used to say, "Why don't you call me and tell me how great of a day you're having?"
I
Like,
like that.
if you feel you only have a person to call when things are bad, what about talking to somebody and expressing how happy you are when things are amazing? Like
That's so good.
let's yeah, like let's focus positive. Like, you had a bad day, but 2 days later, oh, this happened and this was amazing. That is awesome. Then then that just trumped that bad day you had.
That's right.
You know, it's focus on positive. No matter it's all going to work itself out. If you have 100 bad days and then 260 great days, well, which ones are the better out of the year? Which ones are the better? Your 260
Right.
great days. So that's the thing. I focus positive. Like just try to stay with it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I had someone really important in my life early on, and I would call and say, "Well, I didn't do this and I didn't go there." And she said, "Yeah, I don't want to hear about what you didn't do. Why don't you tell me what you did do?"
Hmm.
And that stuck with me. I think that was 20 years ago she said that, and I never forgot that.
No, it just
Because
what yeah, like what great thing happened today? Like
I hear people say, well, alcoholics, true alcoholics, they'll have 90 people saying how wonderful they are, and they'll focus on that one person who
mhm.
said they weren't okay. And so what essentially you're saying is, you didn't do it that way. You did it the opposite. You
Some
focused on the 90. You focused on the 90 and you didn't choose to pay attention to the one. And I like
no,
that.
because like you gotta. Anytime anybody comes to you negative, why are they coming to you negative? It's normally because of their own internal thing.
Right.
I mean, like I my last employer, he do that all the time. I worked for the most a billionaire that was the most negative, miserable person I ever worked for. I did an interview with a guy, and on my resume goes like my name, blah blah, non-smoker, non-drinker. And the owner of this boat looked at me in the face, says, "What if you don't drink? What's your vice?" And I said, and it's flat out, no hiccups. I go, "Cupcakes. I like my cupcakes." And and he's like, "What?" I go, "Sir, I like desserts. Like that's my vice. I like a cake and ice cream." And it is like my
I love
desserts
it.
are my thing. Like
Just from the very first time that I spoke to you, I could just hear how positive you were. And you were hiking. I think were you on a beach?
the day I talked, I walked along this famous walk. I walked 7 miles with probably 6 miles of it in meditation, or not, because I'm taking everything in.
You talk about meditation, like I know it's like could be mean different things for different people. So what has being alcohol free, did that change anything for you as far as like spirituality?
My belief with spirituality and religion, by the way, is I believe there's one God, and every religion is just a different language to speak to the same person. That's what I believe.
I love that.
As far as like my meditation, yeah, like 2 Sundays ago, one of my meditations, as weird as it is, I was in I was not battling something. I was just dealing with something annoying that was bothering me. And instead of doing it, I have an airboat. I grabbed my airboat, hooked it up to my truck, and I went out to the Everglades. And I cruised around the Everglades for about an hour and a half by myself. I had my headphones on, listening to music, but I was in my area of comfort. Nobody else. That's another form of meditation to me, because you don't have different people meditate different ways. I was out there enjoying my life, clearing my head.
Seems like, since you've gotten sober, you filled your life up with so many positive things, trips, you purchased things for yourself to have fun. You took your friends out to eat, you surround yourself with good people. Yeah, it's just like a total replacement of anything that was negative and bad into something that was really great. That's awesome. I love
Yeah,
that.
you got to make sure that you are happy with what you're doing.
Hmm. Or you're
Like
not going to keep doing it. You're right.
no, like you know, if it,
Yeah,
what's the purpose? If I'm not drinking and I'm miserable, then what am I doing? Like
right. You probably end up drinking again, right?
eventually, yeah.
Yeah. So I love it. I love that take on it for sure. And I like the idea of celebrating, you know, when you have an accomplishment, like your yearly accomplishment,
Mhm.
and celebrating that. It's great. I definitely don't do that enough, but I'm going to.
It is, and then you see it, like, you know, like I ended up selling that boat, the Wagon, but then I bought, you know, my airboat. The airboat, like I think I told you, my airboat, like I named it Running Dry. Like,
Did you name? I was gonna
you
say, did
know,
you name that one?
yeah, it's called Running Dry. So like, oh, what's Chris doing? He's running dry. Like, there you go. Like, it just because I'm living what I am, and it's just, and every time I'm on it, I know how I got it. You know, I didn't go
Yeah.
out and buy the most expensive, spend $30,000. I bought a used one cheaper and did it, but it's celebrating part of what I did. And every time I'm on it, I'm continuously celebrating that.
Oh, I love that so much. I got to think of ways in which I could do that here.
Go to a nice hotel that has a spa by yourself, and who, you know, whatever. If it costs $1,000, it's not like you're doing it every other day.
Right. Doing
You
it
know,
once a
it's like
year.
you do it once a year, you know, or switch it up. You know, that's my biggest give on people. That's what I try to do. I want everybody in this to enjoy their lives. I've always heard in meetings people saying, oh, you know, like I was in the meeting and I realized like this guy over here had the nice car, the nice house, the nice this. I'm not saying don't strive to have nice things, but strive to have what you want, not what they have.
That's
You know,
right.
like,
And don't, yeah, and don't wait. You know, you don't have to have the nicest. You don't have to wait 10 years till you
no,
buy the right car. Buy the car now that you can do
that
that
you
you're
want
gonna
now.
love.
Or, you know, like, for example, let's say you had $500,000 to buy a house, but you're like, oh man, like for because I've gone through this in my head. Oh man, but I love like Costa Rica. Well, how about I
Hmm.
buy a $200,000 house here and a $200,000 house there? Now you have, you know, now you
Now
have
you've
both
got
of
two
what you want.
spots.
Don't strive to
Yes.
what that nice house. Strive to what you want, not, you know,
Yes.
what they have.
Yeah, and I think what's so great about putting down alcohol is that you think you knew who you were, but in sobriety, year by year, you start to figure out really, well, I like this, or I didn't know I love that, or I don't like this, you know, and you kind
Mhm.
of discover who you are again, and then you can just outfit it from there.
As much positive as I give, there might be a day you catch me and then I'm like, not today. Like, if I was having the most horrible day right now, I might have been
Right?
yesterday like, hey Jessica, we got to reschedule. A tough day might be just a bad day with something else. Don't let that day beat you.
Could you give a suggestion to listeners who are unsure whether they need to be alcohol free or not, or they're still questioning and listening and they're, you know, what would you say to them?
If you're questioning on if you feel that you're an alcoholic or you have an addiction, what you need to do is look back. There's people that say, "Well, I only drink on the weekends. I'm not an alcoholic." Well, yeah, but have you seen yourself on the weekends? Like, once you stop drinking and you start to really, what we say, feel yourself, like you're really feeling what's going on. If you can't handle it and you go back to drinking, just hiding pain. Try to find what's deep in you, because you're the only one that can decide what you are. I'd go to a meeting and I just sat there and listened. If things are triggering you that make you, if somebody says something in a meeting and it makes you think about something you did, there's a common connection there. Nobody can tell you who and what you are, you know, other than yourself. Nobody can diagnose you saying, "Oh, you are this."
Get real honest, you know, with
That's
yourself.
all it is. One of the biggest things I did in the start of my sobriety is I traded my alcohol for work. So I started compensating, you know, like, all right, if I'm not doing that, I'm going to make as much money as I can. I'm going to have my full time job and I'm going to do all these side jobs and I'm going to keep making money. Then I'm wearing myself out that way. I just traded my addiction. Then
Right.
that's where I'm at now, where I'm enjoying, because I have somebody now, my relationship, that's getting me to not kill myself working and
Right.
enjoy myself. Your your friendships, make sure anybody, if, like, I have a good buddy of mine who lives in Stewart, Florida, near me, and we met because, again, it's like funny how things click. I walk into the first meeting when I first got to Stewart, and he had a white marlin open shirt on, which is a big fishing tournament. I'm like, oh, you fish? He goes, yeah. We've been good friends for like 7 years now. You know,
Right.
like, because we relate there. We both come from the same industry. get a network of people that you can relate to, celebrate with, enjoy time with. We all talk to each other, we laugh
Mhm.
about things and that, but then you can also get, so that's what's helped me a lot, my recovery is just having a solid network.
I agree 100%. Thank you for doing it and for doing it
No,
on your time and when you were back here. And I just so appreciate you coming and sharing your
no,
story. Thank you for tuning into the Sober Living Stories podcast. If you have been inspired, consider subscribing and sharing with anyone who could use hope in their lives. Remember to stay tuned for more inspiring stories in the episodes to come. To view our featured author of the month or to become a guest yourself, visit www.jessicastepanovic.com.